Hey, good evening, everybody. How's it going tonight? Texas Redleg here. Wanted to throw out a video tonight in reference to, I don't know, just sort of the whole overall situation and feeling that I have with the future, with the present and future, actually. And, there's a lot of balls in the air as usual. And it doesn't appear that that's going to let up anytime soon, other than a major event going down to cause something to change drastically. But I think it's time to double down with regard to these preps and your plans. There's a lot of stuff going on with financial markets. The economies of the world are sort of, let's say, streamlining each other, and this G7 going on right now. They're conniving plans and coming up with all sorts of climate agreements and financial agreements and taxation agreements and energy agreements and all kinds of weird stuff that I have a feeling is not going to benefit us. So I think it's time to double down. I think it's time that if you had rested on prepping a little bit or step back or tap the brakes a little bit, you might want to either increase that and or reevaluate your prep situation and maybe deviate things here or there to be prepared for a certain thing or two that you think is most likely to happen. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of people struggle with in the community is the big question of whether to bug in or bug out. And honestly, I think that you probably need to have a plan for both, because you might end up doing both. And I've always been a firm believer in that, your home is your castle. And it's a lot easier typically, depending on where you live. If you're in obviously a downtown urban area, bugging in might just not be a very feasible thing for you. But just assuming that you don't live in an urban downtown loft or something like that, you probably need to have a backup plan or two to evacuate that place and make other arrangements. Make agreements with somebody or family or friends or something like that. But bugging in or bugging out, it's always a big question. And a lot of people just say, well, I'm bugging out. Well, I mean, if you have a plan and you have a place to go and it's safe and you can get there, I mean, that's probably a good alternative to bugging in. But if you don't, bugging in might be your best bet, because a lot of people, should it come to a chaotic situation or an emergency situation, just aren't going to fare well on the road. It's just not going to happen. You might just be better off to ride it out in your own home where you have supplies and the ability to defend somewhat. That's a big deal. But I think you need to have a plan for both. I think it also is going to depend on the actual threat that's ongoing, or the attack that's happening, should it be that. But for example, if we get hit with an EMP and you have an older vehicle, you're probably okay, as long as I believe that, I think if it has a distributor cap, or that era of vehicle, that style of vehicle, if it has a distributor cap or points, it's probably going to be okay in the event of an EMP. If you have anything that's newer, of course it's going to be fried, they say. So I would, that having transportation is obviously a big factor in bugging in or bugging out. If you don't have a bicycle or some other form of transportation, basically you're on foot. So, and in the event of an EMP, your situation is pretty limited, unfortunately. So I would, think about that. Even if the only thing you can get is a bicycle, I would have some type of transportation method other than that, or an older vehicle, maybe that you can get cheap or something, and have around in working condition where it might actually work. But an EMP, being with being the fact that we've been getting hacked on a daily basis now for the last few months, at some level, it should be concerning to everybody. Clearly, we're not prepared to defend that electronically and or deal with it, forensically. So they're just going to keep on doing it, and I think what you're seeing is a lot of penetration testing and that sort of thing, by foreign governments to see just how vulnerable we really are and what our reaction is to those attacks. And so far, it doesn't look like it's been very much of a response or ability to defend. So let that be, speak for itself. I think an EMP and or a further degrading cyber attack is probably in our very near future. So, having obviously things to ride out such an attack, from a comfortability standpoint would be huge. I.e., things in a Faraday cage that can withstand such a thing and survive it and be able to lend you some electronic capabilities and for heat and light and cooking and whatever it may be. Something that's going to have wires that work are probably going to be important to you in the event of an EMP. So you might want to look into Faraday cages, and then obviously there's all kinds of EMP shield bags and things like that that are pretty popular, and you can get online at a decent price, or at least you could. I'm not sure, I haven't looked lately, so I know a year ago they were pretty reasonably priced. So I think an EMP is a very likely scenario. I think another one obviously is financial collapse, and hell, they may happen, coincidentally, they may happen together. That financial collapse is huge. Having some cash on hand is probably a good idea. I'm not sure how much. It varies, between person to person. I think a lot of people say have $500 to $2,000 in cash laying around is probably a good idea, and small bills, obviously. Obviously, barter items such as gold, silver, other precious metals, items that are, sought after in a time of need, such as first aid items, all the 2A stuff as well. Another one is civil war. I mean, it can't be ruled out. With the changing of America and the indoctrination of the public school system into the ideals of the left, it's been that way for decades now. A civil war could very well be possible. Unfortunately, I never thought I'd really lean towards that as being a possibility, but it sure looks like that may be certainly I wouldn't say a unlikely scenario at this point. So having those 2A items and those seeds to go along with them is huge, and I would not let off the gas when it comes to that stuff. Right now, where I'm at in the North Texas area, that stuff is plentiful. The seeds aren't so much. They are available though if you are at the right place at the right time, and certainly online as well. But a lot of 2A items are available in my area and regularly. I would say I could walk into a couple different stores within 3 to 4 miles of each other, and I could probably get a couple, 2 or 3 different calibers should I want to, and they're not even overly priced. So I would not let up on that. If you don't have anything, I would certainly increase my inventory if I were you with regard to those things. Another issue or situational advice I would give people is to be flexible and keep it simple. Having a lot of things is nice, but if you aren't proficient in using them, it might just be more of a problem for you. And that goes with a lot of things, from knowing first aid to knowing how to shoot, to building a fire, to cooking, to building, to creating light, whatever the case might be. You know, I think you need to be flexible, you need to be balanced, you need to be practical, and you need to keep it simple. Use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. Sometimes less is more. You know, these people want to go out and buy, you know, a huge rucksack type backpack with 100 pounds of gear in it, and they can barely lift it. They think they're going to put that on their back and go running down the road. It's not going to happen. You know, somebody's going to kill you, take your stuff, and that'll just be that. So be practical. It's not always about throwing money at stuff with regard to preps. You know, maybe you can get into a mag where you guys can feed off each other and help each other out with, you know, I'm overloaded here, but I need this. You know, barter items back and forth. And bartering, I think, is huge, and it's a good skill to have. I think that being balanced and not being too overloaded, you know, make sure that you have all the food groups covered with regards to your preps and the amounts of things that you have and carry on your person. Me personally, I have you know, an everyday carry bag that has a condensed version of my go bag, and or my bug out bag, you might call it. So on a daily basis, I carry a smaller condensed version of what my bug out bag entails. And so that's everything from seeds to 2A items to first aid to food to water, sanitizing capabilities to light to communications to everything. So I would again have a full-scale bug out bag and then an EDC bag that you have with you every time you go anywhere, and it needs to be a condensed version of what your bug out bag is. So I would just keep that in mind. Again, have a plan for both bugging in and bugging out. Make sure that you are balanced in your preps. Make sure that you're keeping it simple. And remember to not get overwhelmed. Rehearse things, rehearse plans, rehearse routes. Have a plan already in place. Have a couple of plans in place if you can. And know what the situation is. You know, what's going to be the trigger for you to leave. And when that trigger happens, you go. And it's just that simple. So anyway, I hope everybody's doing well. I'm glad to see y'all again. I'll try to make more regular times on here. But keep prepping, stack it deep. Long live the Republic.